This is the moment the Epstein scandal exploded into the most dangerous crisis the American political establishment has ever faced. At exactly 11:47 a.m. Eastern Time on Friday, February 1st, 2026, the Department of Justice released over 3 million documents from the Jeffrey Epstein investigation, and what they reveal will shake you to your core. But it is not what is in these files that should terrify you. It is what the Trump administration's top law enforcement official said about them on national television that proves beyond any doubt that the fix is in, the cover-up is complete, and justice in America is officially dead. Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche looked directly into the cameras on CNN's State of the Union and delivered the most shocking statement in the history of American law enforcement. He said, and I quote, "It is not a crime to party with Mr. Epstein." Let that sink in for a moment. The second highest law enforcement official in the United States of America just told the world that socializing with a convicted pedophile who ran an international child trafficking ring is perfectly legal. This was not a slip of the tongue or an unfortunate choice of words. This was a calculated message to every powerful person whose name appears in those 3 million documents. The message is clear. No matter what you did, no matter who you hurt, no matter how many children you destroyed, you are safe. The Department of Justice will not come for you. The investigation is over. The cover-up is complete. But that bombshell statement becomes even more sinister when you understand what those 3 million documents actually contain. Using what the New York Times describes as a proprietary search tool, investigators found more than 5,300 files containing over 38,000 references to Donald Trump, his wife Melania, his Mar-a-Lago club in Florida, and other related entities. 38,000 references. Think about what that means. This is not casual social contact. This is not an occasional business relationship. This is deep, systematic, ongoing connection between the current president of the United States and the most notorious child trafficker in modern history. The Trump administration wants you to believe that none of these files include direct communication between Trump and Epstein. But that claim is meaningless when you understand how these investigations actually work. Federal prosecutors do not preserve evidence of direct criminal communication in files that can be released to the public. They preserve that evidence in sealed indictments, protected witness statements, and classified law enforcement databases that will never see the light of day. What you are seeing in these 3 million documents is the peripheral evidence, the breadcrumbs, the circumstantial connections that investigators use to build criminal cases. The fact that there are 38,000 references to Trump in just the peripheral evidence tells you everything you need to know about the scope and depth of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. And here is the most terrifying part. Those 38,000 references exist despite the Trump administration's systematic effort to destroy evidence and obstruct investigations since the moment he returned to office. How many documents were destroyed before these files were released? How many hard drives were wiped? How many witnesses were intimidated into silence? How many prosecutors were transferred to different cases or fired outright? The 3 million documents you are seeing represent what survived the cover-up, not the totality of what existed. But the corruption goes far deeper than just protecting Donald Trump. The timing of this document release is not coincidental. It happened on the exact same day that Bill and Hillary Clinton agreed to testify before the House Oversight Committee in their investigation into Jeffrey Epstein. Think about the political dynamics at play here. For months, the House has been threatening to hold the Clintons in contempt of Congress for refusing to testify about their connections to Epstein. They have been subpoenaed, they have been threatened with arrest, and they have been facing the very real possibility of criminal prosecution for obstruction of Congress. Then, magically, on the same day that 3 million Epstein documents are released, the Clintons suddenly agree to testify voluntarily. This is not a coincidence. This is a coordinated political operation designed to create the illusion of transparency while actually deepening the cover-up. Here's how the game works. The Trump administration releases millions of documents that contain no smoking gun evidence of criminal activity. The media spends weeks analyzing these documents and concludes that while there are disturbing connections, there is no proof of specific crimes. Meanwhile, the Clintons testify before Congress in what will inevitably be a carefully choreographed performance where they express shock and dismay about Epstein's actions while claiming they had no knowledge of his criminal activities. Both sides get to claim victory. Trump supporters point to the document release as proof that he has nothing to hide. Clinton supporters point to their congressional testimony as proof that they are cooperating with investigations and have nothing to hide. The media treats this as a bipartisan reckoning with the Epstein scandal, and the American people are told that justice has been served, accountability has been achieved, and we can all move on. But this is exactly how cover-ups work in the modern era. You do not hide evidence anymore. You flood the system with so much information that the truth gets lost in the noise. You create the appearance of transparency while actually making it harder for anyone to understand what really happened. You turn the investigation into a political circus where everyone can claim vindication and no one faces consequences. The most revealing moment in Deputy Attorney General Blanche's television appearance was not his statement that partying with Epstein was not a crime. It was his follow-up comment that the Justice Department will always investigate any evidence of misconduct, but that they currently have no evidence that allows them to prosecute anyone. This is the classic Washington doublespeak that allows officials to sound tough on crime while actually doing nothing. Of course, they have no evidence that allows them to prosecute anyone. They have spent the last year systematically destroying that evidence, intimidating witnesses, and creating legal barriers that make prosecution impossible. When Blanche says they have no prosecutable evidence, he is not describing a failure of the investigation. He is describing the success of the cover-up. Consider what we know about how these investigations typically work. Jeffrey Epstein did not operate his trafficking ring alone. He had co-conspirators, enablers, and customers who facilitated and participated in his crimes. Some of these people provided financial support, some provided logistical assistance, some provided political protection, and some were direct participants in the abuse of children. Federal law makes it clear that anyone who knowingly participated in or benefited from a child trafficking operation can be prosecuted for conspiracy, racketeering, and civil rights violations. The statute of limitations for these crimes is either very long or non-existent when children are involved. There is no legal reason why prosecution should be impossible if the evidence exists. The only reason prosecution becomes impossible is if the evidence is systematically destroyed, or if prosecutors make a deliberate decision not to pursue charges regardless of what the evidence shows. Blanche's statement that it is not a crime to party with Epstein reveals which of these scenarios is playing out. He is not saying they lack evidence of criminal activity. He is saying they have redefined criminal activity to exclude everything that powerful people actually did. This redefinition is not just legally corrupt, it is morally obscene. Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking operation could not have functioned without the active participation and support of wealthy, powerful, well-connected individuals who provided money, access, and protection in exchange for the opportunity to abuse children. These were not innocent social relationships. These were not inadvertent business connections. These were deliberate criminal conspiracies that destroyed the lives of countless victims. When the Deputy Attorney General of the United States says that participating in these relationships is not a crime, he is telling every future Jeffrey Epstein that they can operate with impunity as long as they have enough money and political connections to protect themselves. He is sending a message to every potential victim that their government will not protect them from the wealthy and powerful predators who seek to exploit them. Most importantly, he is demonstrating that the American justice system has been completely captured by the very people it is supposed to investigate and prosecute. The implications of this captured justice system extend far beyond the Epstein case. If the Department of Justice will not prosecute wealthy, powerful individuals for participating in child trafficking conspiracies, what crimes will they prosecute? If socializing with convicted pedophiles is not disqualifying for public office, what behavior is disqualifying? If 38,000 references to a sitting president in the files of an international child trafficker does not warrant serious investigation, what evidence would be sufficient to trigger accountability? The answer clearly is that no evidence would be sufficient. The system is designed to protect the people at the top, regardless of what they do and regardless of who they hurt. This is not a justice system. It is a protection racket for the political and financial elite. But the corruption runs even deeper when you understand the international dimensions of the Epstein operation. Child trafficking is not a domestic crime. It is a transnational criminal enterprise that involves moving victims across borders, laundering money through international financial systems, and coordinating with criminal networks in multiple countries. The evidence in those 3 million documents almost certainly includes information about foreign nationals, offshore financial accounts, and international travel that facilitated these crimes. When the Trump administration announces that no one will be prosecuted in connection with this evidence, they are not just protecting American citizens, they are protecting an international network of criminals and their enablers. They are sending a message to every government and law enforcement agency around the world that the United States will not pursue justice for crimes against children if the perpetrators are sufficiently wealthy and politically connected. This abandonment of international law enforcement cooperation will have devastating consequences for efforts to combat child trafficking globally. If the United States, with all its resources and legal authorities, refuses to hold traffickers accountable, why should other countries risk their own political and economic relationships to pursue these cases? The message being sent is clear: child trafficking is acceptable if it serves the interests of the global elite. The victims do not matter. Justice is not a priority. Political and financial relationships are more important than protecting children. This is not just a failure of the American justice system. It is a betrayal of every child victim of trafficking worldwide and a green light for traffickers everywhere to continue their crimes with confidence that they will never face meaningful consequences. The political theater surrounding the Clinton testimony is designed to distract from these larger implications. House Republicans will ask tough questions and demand accountability. The Clintons will express appropriate outrage and cooperation. The media will analyze every word and gesture for signs of guilt or innocence. And when it is over, everyone will declare that the system worked, justice was pursued, and accountability was achieved. But none of this theater addresses the fundamental question of why a child trafficking network was allowed to operate for years with the full knowledge and participation of some of the most powerful people in the world. None of it explains how Jeffrey Epstein acquired the wealth and political protection necessary to run his operation with impunity. None of it identifies the systems and relationships that enabled his crimes or prevents similar networks from operating in the future. Most importantly, none of it provides justice for the victims or consequences for the perpetrators. It is political performance art designed to create the illusion of accountability while actually ensuring that nothing changes. The real investigation and the real reckoning have been deliberately prevented by the very people who claim to be pursuing justice. When you step back and look at the full scope of what is happening, the pattern becomes undeniable. The Trump administration has systematically dismantled every mechanism of accountability that could threaten powerful political and financial interests. They have captured the Justice Department, intimidated prosecutors, destroyed evidence, and redefined criminal activity to exclude the behavior of their allies and associates. They have turned congressional investigations into political theater that generates headlines but produces no consequences. They have transformed the media coverage of serious crimes into partisan entertainment that treats child trafficking as just another political scandal to be debated and forgotten. This is not incompetence or political bias. This is the systematic destruction of the rule of law by people who understand that their own survival depends on ensuring that certain crimes are never properly investigated and certain criminals are never held accountable. The Jeffrey Epstein case is not unique. It is representative of how the system now works for anyone with sufficient wealth and political connections. Whether you are talking about financial crimes, environmental crimes, war crimes, or crimes against children, the pattern is always the same. Evidence is destroyed, witnesses are intimidated, investigations are obstructed, and prosecutors are captured or replaced. When public pressure becomes too intense, documents are released and hearings are held to create the appearance of transparency and accountability. But the documents never contain the most incriminating evidence, and the hearings never result in criminal prosecutions. The public is told that justice has been served, and the criminals walk free to commit their next set of crimes with complete confidence that the system will protect them again. This is the new normal in American justice. It is a system designed to protect the guilty and blame the victims. It is a system where child trafficking is redefined as social networking and criminal conspiracy is rebranded as political partisanship. It is a system where the people responsible for enforcing the law have become the primary obstacle to achieving justice. And it is a system that will continue to protect Jeffrey Epstein's network and enable future Jeffrey Epsteins until the American people demand something more than document releases and congressional hearings. They need to demand prosecutions, convictions, and consequences for everyone who participated in or enabled these crimes, regardless of their wealth, political connections, or social status. Anything less than that is not justice. It is just another cover-up with better public relations.